Welcome to the 4T Pill. Are you tired of the average colored pill movement? Ready to step it up to the next best thing? Maybe you're not actually feeling like that whole proto-fascist baloney is for you. No matter the case, the 4T Pill is for you.
Hey, for all of you guys listening out there, this is going to be a slightly different take to what we usually do on this channel. And it's going to be like a relaxed chat, and it's going to be Politics is Wrestling. The aim of this podcast series is to essentially look at politics, assess it through the prism of wrestling. And by that I mean, like professional wrestling, sports entertainment, and everything pertaining to that within the ring and outside of the ring in terms of backstage work, inside of wrestling terms, heel, face, pops, character, promos, vignettes, the whole lot. We're going to assess it in that prism because I think, there's a lot to be gained from the world of wrestling, and many ways that the dynamics of that industry can be applied to other areas of our lives. I'm going to try and combine two things that I'm very interested in, or at least as of right now, because of the fervor and all of the shit that's happening surrounding these two topics. So of course there's wrestling. WrestleMania season has just ended. There was Kofi Mania. Brock Lesnar's finally fucking dropped the title. He's no longer holding it hostage. He's out of the building, and Rollins burned Suplex City down. So I'm buzzing off of that. Like, the road to WrestleMania has finally ended, and soon we'll find ourselves on the next road. Come Survivor Series, I'd say Survivor Series, Royal Rumble, and then of course there's UK politics and the clusterfuck that is Brexit. Hey. I'm telling you, so right now I'm here in the UK, and these politicians just look like a bunch of headless chickens, regardless of what side of the aisle that you're on, whether you're a Brexiteer or a Remainer. I think we can all agree that these politicians who are elected to represent us and act on our behalf in a representative democracy don't have it under control. It doesn't seem like they have the expertise or know-how or idea of what they want and how they're going to get it done. And it's definitely an eye-opener. It's sobering, to think that these are the people in charge of running the country, and come one of the most important decisions in the history of our country, they are just kind of like sort of asleep at the wheel and have no idea what to do. What happens if some country like Russia or something invades, or a random war were to happen out of nowhere? Like, who's to say that we're going to be prepared? And we can't even bloody prepare for this. It is worrying, it's eye-opening, and all I can say is for a lot of these politicians, I think they're just shook. They must be shook whenever the next election is going to be. I'm guessing it's going to be within the next year, because there's just been so much pressure from the UK Conservative Party and the opposition in the Labour Party and the Lib Dems, UKIP, Green Party, whoever it may be, to have Theresa May as Prime Minister step down, call another election. Like, given everything that's gone on, I could see why it may make sense for another election to be called very soon. So, and I think whenever that election is called, a lot of these MPs and their constituents are going to remember where they were and what they were doing when Brexit was happening. And I feel like you're going to see a lot of MPs, maybe even some of the ones in what we would deem as safe seats across the UK, be hosted out, be forced out from younger, kind of less, younger, more fresh candidates because everybody's just come out of this mess that is the Brexit aftermath, and like what we're going to do in response to this referendum result with, you know, mud on their hands. Everybody's come out looking dirty. Nobody has been left unscathed. So yeah, when I think about UK politics and wrestling, I would say, and you know, you'll see by the title, that Theresa May as Prime Minister, as UK Prime Minister right now, is, in my eyes, the John Cena of UK politics. So why, you ask, you know, why say such a thing? You know, why make this comparison? You know, it seems odd on first sight, but I feel like it's, you know, there's nothing more apt in the way that, like, you know, first of all, despite all of the different attempts, both within her own party and without, you know, in other parties across the UK, despite all of the attempts that all these different politicians have made to try to unseat her and force her to step down as Prime Minister, it just never seems to work. She just doesn't die, you know? Like, that kind of thing of like, say what you want about her, but, you know, she is not weak. You know, she doesn't seem to give up. She's not backing down, and that is something that, like, gives me shades of, you know, John Cena in terms of his ethos of, you know, never giving up, hustle, loyalty, respect, and, you know, it's the crux of his character that, you know, is the reason why a lot of people love him and why others may hate him. Then, going on to that next point, John Cena, like Theresa May, or I guess until recently with John Cena, I guess since he's taken some time away from the ring and he's gone to do movies, absence has naturally made the heart grow fonder, and you do see him receiving a warmer reception nowadays in the wrestling world, as we recently saw when he returned at WrestleMania, and just various other returns he's made over the last year. But then we have to remember that prior to that, like up until a few years ago, up until like 2015, 2016, John Cena was the person to hate. You know, he was somebody who was loved by so many and hated by so others, and that was kind of like his signature tagline. You know, whenever he would make his entrance, and you know, you'd get the "John Cena sucks, John Cena sucks," or, you know, let's go Cena, Cena sucks. Yeah, I had to make the voice a bit effeminate there. You know, I mean, kind of speaks to his fan base and why he may be so big. But yes, that was his tagline of, like, never has a superstar evoked such a polarized response from the WWE universe. That's how they used to kind of frame it. And it was the situation where, for the longest of times, John Cena was the person to hate. He kind of split opinions, but at the same time, he was the top guy. And there was always that admission, even from his biggest naysayers, that he was a draw and he was a big name. And whether we like it or not, John Cena, maybe not to the same degree of a Rock or Stone Cold, but to a big degree nonetheless, put asses on seats. You know, he got people's eyes back on the product. He helped kind of bring the WWE back from its slump shortly after Brock Lesnar left. Like Brock Lesnar, Goldberg, The Rock, Stone Cold, all those guys left in like 2003, 2004. Him, along with Batista, helped to kind of bring it out of that slump and kind of, you know, reinsert some level of popularity and coolness to the WWE again. And yeah, everybody has to acknowledge that he's the top dog, whether you love him or hate him. And yeah, building on that, when we mention the situation that John Cena was in, how he was thrusted and pushed, maybe arguably prematurely, to the top spot in response to people such as Brock Lesnar, Stone Cold and Goldberg and The Rock leaving within such a short period of time, in terms of he had that window between 2003 and 2004 when all of these big names were going, and WWE was forced to create new stars to fill in those gaps, and that's where John Cena came in. And I do find it interesting. You could make another comparison to Theresa May there, in the sense that, yeah, John Cena was left to kind of manage a slowly sinking ship, which is the WWE, in the sense that the WWE of today does not have the same type of buzz and following that the WWE of 16, 17 years ago had, or that the WWF had. You know, the moment that John Cena came in, because of the gap that those big stars left, he was placed in a tough situation in terms of, when they left, they took their fan base and their mass appeal with them, particularly in the case of The Rock and Stone Cold. So that then left the WWE with a dwindling fan base, viewership, and then you began to see that impact on ratings, which you saw happening in 2004. And with Cena and Batista, there was a slight rebound, but in the long term, you've seen that it's been a consistent decline. And it is interesting that, in terms of, you know, if Cena was born a few years earlier and found himself in an Attitude Era, maybe things would have been different for him. Who knows? But it's that case where he's been handed the kind of keys to the city and said, this is your responsibility now. Or he's been put to the helm of the ship, which is that sinking ship of WWE. And you could say a similar thing with Theresa May and the UK, in the sense that, yeah, hasn't come at the best time. There was, the Blair years, in terms of the boom that the UK economy was experiencing from the early 90s up until the late 2000s. Then after that, there was the recession, the financial crisis that had a big impact on the UK economy. But within a few years, you saw a decent recovery. And then you got Brown, and more so Cameron, who was able to kind of slot himself in the strong rebound years. And then once Brexit came along, which again has thrust the UK economy along with the global economy into a state of uncertainty, divestment, depreciating currency, fall in house prices, decline in real income. People on all levels, within the lower and middle class throughout the UK are financially squeezed, and food banks, in terms of the number of people going to food banks, are an all-time high last time I checked. And it's like she's here kind of having to pick up the pieces, like John Cena, where she's been handed the keys to a sinking ship, and one that's sinking at a proliferated rate compared to before. And she's just having to do what she can in that situation. So I think Theresa May, and I think we can all admit to that, is that Theresa May right now as Prime Minister is in an unenviable position. And maybe that might be the reason why she hasn't been pushed out of her place yet, because perhaps it's not that no one is able to do it, but no one is willing to do it. And I think John Cena was in a similar situation where no one was willing to be the top guy and the face of a declining brand, of a WWE that was a shadow of what it once used to be, that people did not take serious or find cool in the same way. So yeah, that's also where you see the other interesting comparison. You look at the context in which they both kind of came to the fore of leaders in their own right. And I think Theresa May is in that position right now where, yeah, she is the Prime Minister. In terms of leadership and her place within the Conservative Party, as we've seen with like the recent no confidence votes, that like they're still, despite all of their divisions, stand behind her as the leader, not necessarily because they favour her or they really like her a lot, but then they have to respect the fact that she is the strongest candidate as of right now in the party. Besides Theresa May, I can't think of anyone else within the Conservative Party who kind of has the same following or recognition from her party and the mainstream public like Theresa May does right now. It's just that simple situation. As bad as she is, the alternatives in terms of leadership within the Conservative Party seem to be worse. And that was the similar situation with Cena, where everybody was like, oh, this guy's terrible, he doesn't wrestle properly, he doesn't sell things in terms of like sell hits and when people do different moves to him, and he buries everybody else. But then at the same time, who else? There was no one else, and there still isn't anyone else that is able to draw like he does within his generation of wrestlers. There was CM Punk. CM Punk was quite close, but again, as close as he had gotten, for various reasons, one of them was at times to do with his booking, but also the fact that he didn't have the same kind of larger than life look and physique in the way that Cena had, which helped draw in the casual viewers, particularly the women, the female demographic, who are, big on John Cena. I remember reading somewhere that when CM Punk was the world champion and he had his time in the limelight, ratings did somewhat tank a little, and part of that reason why was because of the female demographic. They just tuned out. They tuned off on him. There wasn't any kind of appeal because CM Punk, compared to John Cena, just looks like a regular dude. And for a lot of casual viewers, especially those who grew up to the Rocks, the Stone Colds, the Hulk Hogans, who were these big, larger-than-life figures, both in terms of their personality, charisma, and their physique, aren't going to take to a CM Punk or a Daniel Bryan or a Finn Balor or even a Seth Rollins to some degree, And it's this situation where it's like, say what you like about Cena, but the alternatives just don't command the same draw and pull as either. So for the time being, you have to make do with him. And I think it's a similar situation with Theresa May. And then, of course, this brings us on to, the opposition party. And so, just to kind of go back and summarize it, similar to John Cena, John Cena has that kind of like never say die gimmick, never give up, similar to Hulk Hogan, where, most of his matches consist of him being beat down, being placed in kind of, immovable odds, and then all of a sudden out of nowhere he manages to kind of fight out of it and to, get stronger, fight back and win the match. He makes the comeback, he never gives up, he never dies, and Theresa May is kind of like in a similar type of at least rise in terms of whenever you think that, okay, this is gonna be it, there's this no confidence vote happening, there's the issue of the Brexit delay, there's her deal that she's put forward, all of these different things where you're thinking this is going to be it, this is the time where she's going to have to resign, she's going to have to hand in a notice, this is going to be it, and it just doesn't happen. There's always something that she manages to pull out of the bag to kind of just, I don't know, delay the pain or just avoid that like close call. And yeah, so there's that. And of course, Theresa May, much like John Cena for most of his John Cena for most of his career, was the person to hate. But at the same time, they're the person to hate, but they're the top dog, and they are top for the reasons of they haven't been unseated yet. And there's been no one able to muster up the force and following to unseat or usurp them. Then we're going to go, and then this brings us to our last point, and it lies in Jeremy Corbyn. So we have Mr. Corbyn now, okay? And I would say that Corbyn is very much like the Roman Reigns of UK politics, in the sense that, I don't know, like he's being, and even like in terms of my personal politics, I don't have a beef with the guy. I kind of like some of his policies and his ideas, but at the same time, as a leader, his kind of his perception of being a prime minister and a leader of a country and the statesman, he doesn't have that appeal. He's not like a Tony Blair or David Cameron, who have that charisma and that likability and are able to kind of strike up relationships and favor with different audiences just based on like how they present themselves and articulate their views. That's not Corbyn. Corbyn is a very much kind of like, I don't know, like nitty gritty, let's get focused on the like boring, detailed policy areas. Kind of similar to Gordon Brown in a way. And I think I make that comparison to Roman Reigns because he is kind of like the next person in line to Theresa May. He's the leader in opposition. He recently won more seats in the last election, and there is a chance that he could become prime minister and force Theresa May out. But then it is just that situation of like, with everything that the WWE machine tries to do with Roman Reigns, it's not quite working for whatever reason. And I think it's partly down to the fact that his character is just bland, there isn't really any movement or anything that Roman Reigns stands for in particular. There's nothing that you can associate with his character. Whereas with I don't know, bloody Stone Cold and The Rock, they had their attitude and their pizzazz and their sway. Stone Cold was the not giving two shits about anything. I live by my own rules. This is my show, and what I say goes. And when it's only time when I decide when the time is. Whereas The Rock, on the other hand, was kind of the smooth talking, charismatic, suave sort of guy who's just got the world at his fingertips. Then there's John Cena in terms of never give up, wears his heart on his sleeve, stays true to his character and his ethics and his values, and people dig that too. And then there's just Roman Reigns, he's just kind of vanilla. It's like Diesel 2.0. And some people could say the same for Jeremy Corbyn. It's like, okay, you're being tipped to kind of be next in line for Theresa May, but there isn't particularly anything memorable regarding him, at least in terms of his personality and charisma. And again, he's failed to offer a definitive alternative to the electorate, particularly in terms of Brexit. Not necessarily so much in respect to his general policies, but I'd say Brexit. That whole debate, this whole issue, a lot of the time you hear from Corbyn is the deal that Theresa May has put forward is not good enough. We need to make changes. It's not good enough. It's not good enough. We should call an election. But you rarely ever hear him put forward his alternative, okay, or say we should do this. We should go about it this way. It's just kind of pointing the fingers, and it's it's that situation where people can kind of tune out and lose respect for him in that way, in terms of at least Theresa May has an edge to her in terms of she's kind of drawn a line in the sand about where she lies with the Brexit deal. But you don't really, you can't necessarily be sure about that in the same way when it comes to Corbyn. And I'd say, yeah, that's why he's like the Roman Reigns. So I think that's going to wrap it up for today's episode. But yeah, say Theresa May, the John Cena of politics. And I feel like it's going to be that situation where, in spite of everything that's going on surrounding Brexit and all of the madness, I feel like either way, whether she steps down as Prime Minister or continues on until the next election, and maybe even wins that election, she's going to come out looking maybe like stronger in this, at least compared to everyone else, because she is, John Cena. She is kind of like, yeah, the top dog in all of this. But yeah, just kind of a thought experiment that I'm going through right now. So Theresa May, the John Cena of politics, and Corbyn, the Roman Reigns of UK politics. Let me know your thoughts on that. Let me know, if you agree or disagree. Let's chat about it. Let's get into it in the comment section. And yeah, please like, share, and subscribe. This video to this channel. Turn on your notifications. Let's try and bring some growth to this, so I can make more of these videos. I think it's an interesting concept and idea. So yeah, man, thanks for listening. Peace out, and never forget, the main aim is to get over. So get over.